I've chosen question 2, 3, 4, and then obviously question 5. So we will start with question 2 about identity. So what does this suggest about identity and belonging, especially in the light of Noah's interracial identity? Why is it easier for him to be around black kids? It's easier for him to be around black kids because he doesn't have to pretend to be someone else. He blended in quite easily because it is his true identity and belonging in the light of his interracial identity. But in the light of his interracial identity, we would think that he would blend in anywhere because he knows how to speak a lot of other languages. But growing up in South Africa, an undermined category, and in the gloomy light of apartheid, you had one choice, and it was to talk to the people with only your race. But it takes a lifetime to realize that we don't have to declare a single racial identity. To live in a progressive community and to recognize that we don't live in a post-racial promised land, we self-identify and segregate ourselves into tribal camps based on whether we are black, white, or brown, or if our politics are red or blue. That is why it's easier for Trevor Noah to be around black kids, because as he says in the quote, with the black kids I wasn't constantly trying to be, with the black kids I just was. It's easier to be around the people you really belong with, and the burden from his shoulders would disappear when being so. And release yourself for the better and release your true identity towards others. Then we're moving on to question 3, the chameleon. So, why is it being helpful for him to be able to fit in so many situations? So Trevor is a mixed child, as it's called in South Africa, a child who was not legal in the country at the time of birth. His father is white and from Switzerland, and his mother is from Xhosa descent from South Africa. It wasn't easy for the father, and while Trevor was still a child, the father moved from the family to Cape Town. The mixed roots from both white and black families are a source that makes him quite relatable to many groups in his home country. In his early childhood, he lived in one of the poorest and most stressful areas, although his family later moved to a middle-class area. The son of a black mother and white father, Noah regularly had acclimate to a variety of thought situations, forcing him to think critically about race and country's legacy of racism and colonialism. Throughout these experiences, Noah remained anchored by his mother Patricia, whose aspirations for her son guaranteed that he would be able to rise above the meager beginnings. Every time Trevor Noah speaks a different language, he shows how he is a chameleon, because he defines himself in these different situations, and that he doesn't belong to the one particular group, but multiple groups. He says, "Since I belong to no group, I learned to move seamlessly between groups. I was a chameleon, still a cultural chameleon," page 140. This has been helpful for him in a lot of situations, because he can form friendships with a lot of different groups with young people when he understands the cultural differences and focus on it, and in that form he has been accepted by society. He could be the change in the world of the blacks that he wanted to see, and make a huge difference because he can relate to a lot of the things that they have been exposed to, which leads us to question 4. So race, white, colored, or black. So, for example, why did the whites call colored people amber bats the almost bus? So Trevor Noah was forced to choose, and he chose black because he didn't spend his whole life looking at himself. The world saw him as colored, and he saw himself in other people around him, and they were black. The apartheid government under which Noah is born does everything in its power to systematically repress and disempower non-whites, forcing them to constantly live under siege. Nora explains that apartheid exploited the minor differences among groups to keep them focused on one another and not the government. It separated blacks and coloreds into separate territory and ensured that groups like the Solo and Xhosa remain at another's throats also. So the system used to sow confusion, hatred, and mistrust. They were second-class citizens. That's why Afrikaners used to call them ambas, the almost bus. It means that you're close, almost there, and this close to being white. Every year under apartheid, some colored people would get promoted to white, which seems ridiculous. All you had to do was leave your darker-skinned friends and family behind. Which leads us to question 5. So I chose to focus on a paragraph in chapter 5, The Second Girl, and it goes like this. We tell people to follow their dreams, but you can only dream of what you can imagine, and depending on where you're from, your imagination can be quite limited. So this quote is important because it focuses on what background you have, and that has a huge impact on your life and what you're willing to believe in. Your imagination can be very limited if you are, for example, poor and you have limited resources. But it's not always the case. If you fully believe in yourself, you can follow your dreams even if you've been raised in a criminal environment, and you can become whatever you dreamed of, which Trevor Noah tries to encourage with